Well, it's a very good evening and welcome along to another edition of the DL Debates as we reflect back on county champions that were crowned over the weekend. As we know, Naomh Conaill winning a third senior football championship title in 4 years after disposing of the reigning champion St Eunan's on Saturday. And Letterkenny Gaels lifting a first ever senior adult title as they took victory against Carndonagh yesterday to be crowned junior champions. On tonight's show, sitting in studio, we've got Naomh Conaill, who is the chairman of the Letterkenny Gaels Club. He's going to act as our referee tonight because we've got a Eunan's man, an Naomh Conaill man and a Glen Swilly man. So the Glen Swilly man stuck in between the boys from the two superpowers, the so-called superpowers of Donegal Senior football. But John Gildea, Brendan Kilcoyne and Gary McDaid. Good evening, gentlemen.
Good evening, Oisin.
Good evening.
Well, I suppose first of all, we'll go to John Gildea, who I'm delighted to say is joining us in studio. John, you're welcome.
Thanks very much, Oisin.
Congratulations on being crowned county champions.
Thank you.
We're really disappointed that we don't have the backdrop, John. Because normally we get the John Gildea backdrop of the celebrations, and we're stuck with Gary McDaid on Zoom tonight and you had to come to studio. So
given the backdrop that I was going to use, I was advised on legal grounds not to show up on Zoom here directly. So I think discretion was a better part of valor this time round.
Yeah, well, listen, a tremendous one for Naomh Conaill, to say the least, John.
Yeah, it's been a hard 12 months for those boys. As we all know, they performed very poorly in last year's final. And in a lot of quarters they were written off by a lot of people, and they brought that hurt into the game on Sunday with them. And unlike last year, whatever way the result was going to go towards the end of the game and it was still in the melting pot, they could have walked away with their heads held high because they really turned it completely around from this time last year and came away with the win, which is obviously what it's all about. But immensely proud. I know the people in the parish and Naomh Conaill and Fintown and Glenty's people all around the world are immensely proud of them, and it was a great day for everybody involved.
Huge day for everybody involved if you're from the Fintown Glenty's area. And I think what John was saying there, Brendan Kilcoyne, will take you in. Obviously what took place last year was very much the driving factor behind the win and the success for them.
Oh, without a doubt, and we've all been there down through the years. Hurt is, it's a great medicine to invigorate and to replenish any team. And obviously after last year's final that Eunan's won comfortably, I think 111 to 4 points, you could see that hurt in that Naomh Conaill team, and all that hurt was poured out because you go back to the game on Saturday evening, the energy and the ferociousness of the tackle and their ability to double up, treble up on Eunan's players in possession, and that just comes from hunger. That just comes from 12 months of waiting for their chance to get revenge. And they brought it all on Friday or on Saturday evening, and deservedly were winners irrespective of all the other side factors that went on in the game. And you can't take that away from them.
Yeah, we'll come to that side factor in just a second. We're going to dip into the Glen. The sun was setting in the background. Gary McDaid probably has all the sheep looked after at this stage of the evening. But Gary, Naomh Conaill champions again, and I think we're concurring with what the two boys are saying, deserving of it.
I'm trying to get room to breathe here, Oisin, between these two superpowers. We've been squeezed out of it, so we are.
It's not before time.
No, the funny thing about it, I was thinking after the match, I was thinking a lot about it today, when you consider no Walton Doherty, probably their best go-to defender, the man to cut out the main forwards on the opposition side. No Owen McGettigan, their go-to forward, their main scoring threat. Kieran Gallagher was a big part of the team in the last couple of years. He's not there anymore. Kieran Brennan's not there anymore, who came in and won a championship in the last couple of years. Nathan Byrne was a big man, played around the middle and full forward, gone. Leo didn't start yesterday. Leo McClune back on the bench. So the five boys that didn't play at all, plus Leo not starting. I mean, I think it probably would maybe go up there as one of their greatest, if not their greatest achievement to win it, considering the personnel that they were missing. And probably, I'm trying to pick the right way to phrase this. I would say all the Athletics teams of their 6 championships that they've won, I'd say the other 5 teams were probably more talented considering the personnel that they were missing. But therefore, it just shows the sheer doggedness and determination and grit that they used to get over the line yesterday.
Yeah, but it's all about the way they play the football, the way they play the system, and how they work together as a cohesive unit, Gary.
Yeah, it was really interesting. I was watching the game along with Brendan Devaney, so I was, and the two of us, he was pulling his hair out, so he was watching the game. He was becoming highly frustrated. And, I was just fascinated. They were just dropping back. They weren't looking for contact high up the pitch. It was nearly from about 50 metres they were looking for contact from their own goals, and they weren't going in a 1v1. I was kind of saying to Brendan, I said they're nearly trying to set a triangle. I could see this triangle formation working, that they were, I don't know if it was on purpose or it just happened, that they tried to get one unit's player into one of their triangles, and then bang, the tackle would come in and they would get the turnover and get in the road. And in fairness, I thought their transition was really good yesterday. For what a lot of people, and I laughed, I think it was Kevin McGettigan said, a lot of people said these boys should be in the county home afterwards. So they've been badly hurt and deeply hurt. But, they didn't look like a team that had aged on the transition in particular. I thought the transition was really good. They emptied themselves getting up the pitch. Like they didn't have a target to kick it in the transition. They had 15 back. They had to run every ball, Oisin, and that is incredibly hard to play for 60 odd minutes. So it is its energies happen.
Yeah, we'll come back to John Gildea. John, we're talking about the system, but I know Martin Regan confirmed it, and there was speculation about Jim McGuinness being involved in training and this summer or this championship period and helping out with his hometown club. And obviously Barry Dunyan has brought another dimension as well. So the work that these guys put in, even though, and you alluded to it in earlier DL Debate Championship episodes about questions being asked about this, Naomh Conaill said, even when there was questions asked earlier in the year, the amount of work that them boys must have put in to be at a stage where they came to now in the final must have been phenomenal.
Yeah, and Jim was involved in the latter end, and it's obviously a great asset to be able to pull on somebody of his talent and proven ability over the last 15 years in Donegal, and having that asset is incredibly useful, and you could see it in a lot of the things, that the way they played and setting box traps, as Gary alluded to, etc. But I don't want to take too much away from Martin Regan and his backroom team and everything else. Like, this work has been done not only in this year, but over the last 7-8 years. This just didn't happen overnight. This team has been evolving and growing, and what he's been able to do over that period of time, he's able to find 1 or 2 new players to add to the mix all the time. That's taken the pressure off the older players. But they worked incredibly hard, and to be honest, and I knew from a long time ago, they wanted to be under the radar. They're not a team that is going to beat teams out the gate by 10, 11, 12 points. Units have that ability. Naomh Conaill do what they do, and they won the game. They beat, Glen Swilly, as Gary will know, a number of weeks ago, and they did a job in about 7 minutes, and then they just retreated and did their job and moved on. And that's what they're very, very good at. And their level of discipline that they brought to the game on Saturday evening was exceptional. They didn't give away cheap fouls. They knew exactly what they were doing. Everybody was tuned in and fully motivated. And then in the transition, it was full on blitz from them. So as a team performance, it ranks up there with one of the very, very best the club has produced, because this St. Eunan's team, and I want to pay credit to them, they didn't show up. I felt they lacked a little bit of intensity compared to maybe this time last year, and that's down to a little bit of hunger, and things didn't go their way, obviously, with Shane being sent off and etc. But sometimes this is the type of thing that'll energise and motivate that team the way that it motivated Naomh Conaill last year. And this team has been so used to winning. They've won through underage. They haven't experienced many days like they've experienced on Saturday. And maybe, in another 5 or 6, 7 years' time, we'll be looking at that as a pivotal moment for them as well. Because Brendan said earlier on, sometimes hurt can be a far, far bigger motivating driver than winning championship after championship. And that was very evident on Saturday. In the critical moments when somebody needed to really stand up, inevitably it was a a man in blue, be it Kieran Thompson or Brendan McDaid or Jack McKelvey, whoever it might have been, won that crucial ball or kicked that crucial score just to move them one step further ahead.
Yeah. The hot topic is, of course, the sending off. What's your views on it? Shane O'Donnell, was he hard done by in the card?
Yeah, absolutely. Shane didn't deserve to be sent off. I looked at it again on TV after the fact. There was a number of things played into it, and I actually feel sorry for the referee, because I know he was given information, he acted on the information, and that's the only thing he could do in that kind of situation. I think there was a little bit of naivety maybe on Shane's behalf to get involved and have hands around the head, because then you leave yourself open to a decision going against you. But in the grand scheme of things, he was very, very unfortunate to be sent off, and I don't think, if the same thing had happened on the Naomh Conaill point of view, we would have been devastated, and he rightly and St Eunans have every right to feel aggrieved in that situation.
Kieran got man of the match, and rightly so, the second half performance, but there was a question over a challenge on Sean McGettigan as well he got a yellow card for that. Was that the right decision?
It was the right decision on two fronts.
Yep.
He definitely deserved his yellow card because he body checked him.
Yep.
But he also made the right decision in the sense that he was perfectly right to body check him, because Mr. McGettigan was verbally encouraging.
Well, listen,
allegedly.
Listen, at the end of the day, it showed a body check, and somebody said that the cards have been reversed. But it is what it is, Brendan. You were looking to come in there, so you were.
Not particularly, actually, no. No, listen, obviously Shane was a big loss. Like, he's a big player for St Eunans, centre forward, county man, who had a really good year with Donegal this year, and you know, he was integral in the goal, setting up the goal for Owen McGeehan too. So obviously he was a loss when he was off the field. That said, Eunans had 15 men in the first half and didn't show enough ambition, or didn't show enough forward thrust to be able to break down a resolute and a hugely well organised Naomh Conaill defence. And you know, that was concerning, because they were playing with whatever elements were in their favour in the first half. So listen, we'll never know what would have happened, and I wish that it had ended up 15-15, but we don't know what way that would have transpired. But based on what we saw in the 15-15, Eunans didn't do enough in the first half to cause them problems. They weren't prepared to break it down. And you know, there was two passages of play that stuck out to my mind, and as I was driving home from the game, and it was the first few minutes of the second half and the last few minutes of the second half, when Eunans dominated possession but didn't show enough ambition or drive to maybe go at the Naomh Conaill defence, albeit as well organised as they were, and to try and win a free or to try and create something. Everyone seemed to be happy to pass the buck, and there was no one to take on the responsibility. And that was a complete difference to what Kieran Thompson did in the second half, whereby he took ownership, he took responsibility, he caught a massive ball in the middle of the park, kicked it over the bar, kicked a 45. Like, Eunans are going around the last few years taking Sean Patton up to kick 45s, and we've said it on commentary, Oisin, and it's not working, and they keep doing the same things. And their thing, you know, that they're the margins in county finals between these two clubs, because there's a huge rivalry, and there are 9 times out of 10 there's going to be a kick of the ball between them, and they're the margins. And you know, Kieran Thompson on the other side knocks over his 45. So there's wee things that Eunans need to learn and to take out of this, and I'm sure they will. They're a young side, particularly in the forward division, and you know, from 8 up, actually, they're very young, the experienced defence. But there were a couple of things like that they will look back and hopefully learn from to take them forward, like, you know.
Okay, we'll bring Gary back in again. Gary, you have to lose one in a disappointing way to sort of start to find the upper part of the cogs and the gears once again. St Eunans will probably learn a hell of a lot more from Saturday past than what they did in 1 and 12 months previous. And how does that going to bode well for the rest of the clubs in the championship next year and further? We've seen obviously what Dublin done when they lost to Donegal. There was talk of this great Dublin team, and then Donegal beat them. There's been talk of this great St Eunans team. Now Naomh Conaill have beat them. So is this maybe the kickstart that Eunans needed?
It's funny, you know, 60 minutes it can be an eternity in football, Oisin. All the talk last year was, and I remember John Gildea referencing this too earlier in the DL debate, that Glenties were being referred as possibly the greatest ever team to come out of Donegal, coming up to the final last year, and then they lost the final. And this Eunans team were being really talked up, that they wanted to give Ulster a good crack, that they felt maybe they came up a wee bit short against Glen Mahara, Waddy Graham's last year, and felt, you know, that they wanted another crack at that there. They're going to be deeply disappointed. But as regards your question, you know, I think for all the other 14 clubs looking on yesterday, you know, I don't think the level is where it was at a couple of years ago. Say that Weedore team that that won the title that in 2018 went the whole way to the Ulster club, or the Glenties team that started the start of the back-to-back. I don't think yesterday or Saturday the quality was there, say, of either of those teams that were on display. So I think it gives everyone else a wee bit of hope. And there's a huge talk always in the top four the last lot of years, but I think they're being slowly reeled back in now, not massively. There is a 1-2 there with Naomh Conaill and St Eunan's at the minute, and Kilcoyne I think will be. They'll look a lot at that game, at what Glenties did at the weekend, and think, if we only had been a wee bit more, attack-minded, if anybody else had stood up. I remember Paddy McDaid, Kieran McGinley, they were the two of the few players that stood up in the day, so they're going to fancy themselves that, there's another title here for us as well. I think everyone else, it gives them food for thought and gives them a wee bit of hope going into the winter, and I completely agree with what Brendan was saying there about the 45s, and that's, young Conor Donegal Junior was I think was due to start the semi-final, was sick then, so he never managed to get his place back for the final. But he's a man can definitely ping 45s over the bar, and in a game of fine margins, those are massive calls, and sometimes the stronger the bench, maybe you don't always, a lot of people have said maybe units don't know their strongest team. Like Owen Dowling was a mainstay in the team last year. He's hardly got a sniff this year. Brian McIntyre 2 years ago was a mainstay in the team. I think got their club player of the year. And Kieran Tobin, to me, is probably their best man marker across their back six. I think he's a really, really dogged man marker. And he didn't even get a start yesterday. And that's just off the top of my head. A few lads, that probably feel a bit aggrieved themselves that they didn't maybe get in the starting team to try and push it over the line. But that doesn't take nothing away from Naomh Conaill and Glenties as well. As I said to you, when you list the boys that came out that were missing during the game yesterday, they didn't kick the ball in often yesterday. They pinged one long one into Charlie McGuinness. He got a goal. Another one came in. He got a point. I think that's the only 2 times they put it in. Reverse that over to St Eunan's. The only time I can remember them putting it in long, and Kevin Keeley got the goal. Going back to Brendan Kilcoyne's point about the 4 minutes, I think he mentioned late in the second half, it nearly looked to Oisin as if they were afraid to lose the ball in contact. Conor O'Donnell Sr. was probably one of the men during the day who really tried to break the lines and go beyond the lines. And there's no one in that 4 minutes later on trying to break the line to try and win a free. The game is there's a point in the game, time's almost up. You have to realise the referee's probably going to give the attacking team, the team that's a point behind, he's probably going to give them a free. You've seen it happen so many times, and there's any kind of contact at all, and no one even made him question that call, never mind make that call, because they weren't willing, they were nearly afraid, they didn't want to be the man to lose the ball in contact. They're played with a wee bit of fear, and I know a lot of those lads, they're really good players, they're well able to break those lines and win the frees.
Gary, I'm just going back to a point you made at the start of that about the rest of them will now look at it and think they've got a bit closer. Are you suggesting that the level of Donegal football has slipped slightly as we go on to Ulster?
Well, I still think Naomh Conaill are going to give Ulster a serious rattle. I expect them to get over Carrigan the next day, and I also, well, they
have to play the Derry or the Tyrone champions then after that, which could be a difficult assignment.
100%, and the Tyrone's champions record is poor in Ulster, because they seem to have new teams coming in all the time. It's very hard when you're a new team coming in to try and get a run, because maybe it's been over celebrated, that title. It hasn't been run in a while. Glenmahar are definitely come in with huge ambitions there, but I haven't seen them play it yet this year. But from talking to people in Derry, they're not at the level that they were at last year either. So I think Naomh Conaill, they'll fancy their chances in Ulster. I don't think it's Donegal has gone back. I just think the level of football, it's certainly in Ulster, club football is not the level it was a couple of years ago.
Yeah, we'll bring John Gildea back in. John, Ulster's next, but for once, Naomh Conaill have the luxury of a break of about 3 weeks, so they can enjoy this week for a change and celebrate it properly. And then they'll refocus for the provincial championship. What do you think Martin Regan and his management team will be saying to this group of players as they head into another Ulster campaign?
Well, nothing much really changes from their point of view. they treat every game exactly the same in the sense that they know what they're about. They know the game they're going to play. There's going to be no, mad tactical changes because they're going into Ulster. We're not blessed with an abundance of natural, shall we say, free scoring forwards in like Patrick McBurdy's or Michael Murphy's at it, even though Brendan McDaid had a phenomenal game at the weekend. He was kicking scores for fun. He was really rolled back the years. So we play that very high intensity structured game. We break teams down, we transition fast, and we get our scores. I think Naomh Conaill yesterday kicked one wide in the entire game, and given the conditions and everything else, it shows you how well they used the ball and how careful they were with possession when they had it, and they optimised it at every possible opportunity. But they're definitely a team that can go a long way in Ulster. Like, they were in an Ulster final a couple of years ago, and again they were disappointed at the way they performed. And I think this is they've got this game out of their system now. That was a huge motivating factor for the year, and they can refocus over the coming weeks. But I expect them to get over the Antrim champions. Glen or the Tyrone champions are going to be a big hurdle. But you could never write them off. Like I said there a couple of weeks ago when people were talking about Unions, and I did say Unions are probably going to be one of the dominant teams over the coming years. But that bunch of players, you can never write them off on any given day. And ironically, going into this time of year suits them better. Grounds are heavier, the ball's slippier, everything's a bit slower. It's more, aimed towards physical teams that can take contact and give contact. So they'll be thereabouts. They're definitely going to be in the shake-up.
Yeah, heading to another provincial campaign. Brendan, Ulster's always tight. It's a bit of a merry-go-round in there at times, so it is, and trying to dog out a win is a difficult place in Ulster club level.
Oh, absolutely. And anyone that comes up against this Naomh Conaill team are going to earn anything that they get against them. They are so well organised tactically. They're so well set up, and they got everything right on Saturday night, from their own kickouts to conceding Sean Patton's kickouts to their defensive shape. Like, you were looking out at times on Saturday night, and the D was protected so well that it was really hard to see any pocket of space or anything for a Unions player to break into and create that scoring opportunity. And that doesn't go against what I was saying earlier on. That's the job, is to create them opportunities. Unions weren't able to do that, and you have to give kudos and credit to Martin Regan and his team for that. But I tell you, any team that they come up against in Ulster is going to have the work to cut out to meet them, and they're not going to enjoy it. They're definitely not going to enjoy coming up against them, because they're so adept at doing what they do. Every man knows his role, and they've actually got better at it. I think this was the best year I've seen them, and Saturday night was an exhibition of setting up structurally, defensively. It was just A1, so it was. Yeah.
What's next then for Unions, Brendan? Do you think it's a hard defeat to swallow for these guys, sort of?
It is, yeah, but that's sport, and you have to take your losses with your victories, and Unions now have to circle the wagons and realise that they had some shortcomings on Saturday night and look to address them issues maybe. And there is a lot of quality there, and it's up to the lads that are involved themselves to get stuck in again and to refocus again on next year, and to do what we've spoke about earlier on, to use that hurt to drive them on. And they are going to be hurt. I would like to think they will be hurt. They need to be hurt, and it's about getting their heads right about it, going about it next year. It's a long way away, but that's where it starts. The pain starts today, tomorrow. You kind of forget about it in the couple of nights that you're out after the match, but the pain starts today, tomorrow, and there is a lot of quality there, but there are things that they need to tidy up.
Yeah, and in relation to their manager, there has been a lot of speculation in the media about Rory Kavanagh over the last number of months since this job at county level became vacant. We're expecting that there'll be an announcement probably from the county board, maybe in the next couple of weeks, maybe later this week. We don't know, but it's all speculation in relation to Rory Kavanagh at the minute. If Unions are going to knock on from this and try and bounce back, do they need Rory Kavanagh at the helm at the O'Donnell Park?
Yeah, I would say so. Like, they seem to work well with Rory there, so they do, and it's all a learning process for Rory too. Management is a tough gig. Yeah. It's a tough gig, be it at club level or county level, and every day you go out there are learnings. And Rory, in the scheme of things, larger scheme of things, he's relatively inexperienced manager. He's a young manager just out of playing himself, and every day he goes out, Rory will learn new stuff and will have to adapt to that. So listen, we don't know what's going to happen with the county board. There is this speculation, but you know, if Rory can't talk about it, I can't see how we can speculate on it either, kind of thing, you know.
Yeah. Rory hasn't commented on any of the speculation. He's turned down those questions when they were asked by other media outlets over the last number of weeks, and rightly so, because he was focusing on a club championship with us. But we'll wait to see what happens. We'll wait to see whenever the announcement comes. It's just staying with St. Eunan's. We'll talk about the joy of two teams in a second, John, and what it means. Disappointment on two fronts. The senior B side lost out as well to Glenties. The day didn't start good and it didn't end good, Brendan.
It didn't, and you know, the reserve game was a very good. First half was really good. Second half died off a bit, but you know, Glenties, that experience. Derek Gallagher rolled back the years and kicked some great scores, and Mark Birkin full forward took his goal, took the one real chance that he got, and that was the game. That was the clinching of the game. And Eunan's, you know, I don't know whether Lee was injured, but he came on, and you know, they kind of lost their discipline and they lost their way a bit in the second half. But, you know, there are a lot of good players on both sides, both experienced and young players. And, yeah, it was disappointing for Eunan's. They've had a lot of success at reserve level. And, you know, again, you can only just say congrats to Naomh Conaill on pulling off what is a historic and fabulous double for them on the day.
Yeah. What does it mean, John Gildea, for two trophies to be heading back to the parish of Naomh Conaill? Because when you won it on both fronts at senior level, it's huge. So it is. Winning one title on one day, but doing the double.
Yeah, and it's been an amazing year. You know, I was just looking through some of the stats. Like Naomh Conaill have played in every senior championship match or every senior match possible this year. They won the Donegal Gaeltacht. They played in the All-Ireland Gaeltacht final and got beat. The reserves won the league, won the championship. The seniors got beat in the league final, won the championship. So, and our thirds are in the county final next week. So from a club perspective, and I know, you know, for all intents and purposes, it's still a small club. We're a small community over there. Everybody knows everybody. And that's down to 17 years of relative success since we made the breakthrough way back in the days of black and white to the point where all these boys have come through now. And, you know, we'll see the same things, you know, later on with Danny when we talk about the Gaels. Those winning championships at any level is hugely important because it encourages the next generation to come through. And as Brendan rightly pointed out, when you look at that reserve team, and to be honest, that Eunan's reserve team, the standard of football for reserve football at this point in time, compared to when we were back in the day, and reserve was, you know,
and if those two sides could have played intermediate championship,
absolutely all day long, and the standard's so high, and there's a lovely blend of, you know, back in the day it used to be, you know, you had a very young fellas and then boys that were so over the hill that they were dangerous to certain people, including themselves. Whereas now you have really quality senior players with All-Ireland medals and with club championship medals that are coming down, and then you have that new generation and both clubs coming through that's only going to improve the senior team in years to come. But it's an incredibly proud year for Naomh Conaill. The amount of work that's gone in from, you know, under eights the whole way through, you know, it starts there. But every one of those kids that was at the float and Glenties on Saturday night, and the senior and the reserve team walked the trophy up the main street, that's the next generation for the next 20 years. And as long as that success continues, that conveyor belt will continue. And Martin's done a very good job of always finding one or two players every year. And next year we'll hope to have one or two players more to come through. But no, it's just, listen, it's fantasy stuff for a club like us.
Yeah, you didn't decide to go and show it off through Glenswally on the way home last night or on Saturday night, no?
There's a special parade there, I think, next Saturday night. But no, and listen, again, you know, going back to the Gaels, and you talked to Danny shortly, if you look at Glenswally, for example, 25 years ago, I think, Gary, is it 25 years ago you were founded, or a wee bit more?
Yeah, 84.
84. Yeah. And you look at the success that club has in that period of time as well. So I think it's good for the county in general that club football in Donegal right now is very competitive. We've, you know, we did the back-to-back, they went for 3 in a row, didn't happen. Units were going for the back-to-back. And as Gary pointed out, clubs feel that they all have a chance now. So it's very good from, you know, what's going to happen next year, and who knows.
Okay, we'll be bringing...
Sorry, 82, John. 2 years, sorry.
There you go. 82. Okay, what's the state of play like in Glenswally, Gary, as you look into the next number of years?
Listen, you know, we're not too bad. I suppose Parry Bunner, and you know, has done a massive job. He's done 3 years there, and he's done Trojan work because the team needed a major transition. It needed a bit of surgery, and he has certainly completed the surgery. You know, there's a lot of the old guard have moved on. You know, I think there was only 3 over 30 that played the last day. against Dave Conaill in the quarter final. That would be Michael Murphy and Keelan Kelly came on, and Copper. The rest of the age bracket's pretty good. So it is, and probably a lot of them are the lower 20s, late teens, and we have a decent minor team there. They're actually playing John's Naomh Conaill now on a double header this weekend, Oisin and McCool Park. So Naomh Conaill and ourselves in that minor semi-final on Sunday evening. So we'd hope to get maybe another couple of players out of that next year to push on into the senior team, because we're just a wee bit short at the minute. But as I said, Porrick's he's actually done the hardest work, and hopefully he gets the rewards he deserves now.
Okay, Gary, if you just stay on the line there with us, because we're going to briefly talk Ulster Championship at our county level after the draw was done. On this segment on the seniors, we're going to leave the last word to our do we call you our guest of honour tonight, John?
The chance to be a fine thing.
Because you're normally on the Zoom. I think this is the first time I've had you in the studio.
As a guest of honours, we didn't even get biscuits.
You see, Gary told me when he was coming earlier today to bring the tea and the biscuits with him.
No, they didn't even show up. Gary here was well off, stayed at home.
It didn't show. But listen, John, many congratulations to you and all your fellow people in the parish of Naomh Conaill, and enjoy your success, because you have to enjoy it when you get it, isn't that right?
No, absolutely, yeah. and those young fellas don't know what it is not to be successful.
Yeah.
I grew up in a generation where we won an intermediate title and we played in a league final and we got beat more than we won, and that was the way it was, and that's the way it is until it changes. And just like Dublin, they're unbeatable, and then they fall out of favour. You're only as good as your last game, and this year we're top of the pops, but it all starts again in a couple of months' time, and then you never know where you're going to end up. So
I'm just looking at, who I'm thinking of? Brendan McDaid, who was there in 2005, came on as a substitute. He's been there. He's a medal for each and every one of them. And there's some and a couple of others. Yeah. Hugely inspirational men for a young generation to come through and watch.
Oh, amazing! And over and above that, Brendan McDaid, myself and Brendan were talking about him earlier on. Scored 3 points in the county final 17 years ago, and he rolled back the years. But Anthony Thompson, Liam McClune, Owen Wade, and Marty Boyle.
Yeah.
Marty Boyle's played in this 7,500 championship
102
match.
is it or something?
But it's over and above their football ability. Just to give you a little anecdote, the Naomh Conaill minor team under 17 team played on Friday night.
Yeah.
And the management setup was Marty Boyle was the manager, and I think Leo was involved and Wade was involved. So they go out and play their football, and we're immensely proud of them, and they have a host of championship medals. But those men on any given night of the week are in the field giving back to the next generation as well. So over and above what they've achieved themselves, they're encouraging the next generation that's going to come behind them as well, which is very admirable.
Yeah. Okay. Listen, John, many thanks for coming up. Good to see you.
Thank you very much.
Enjoy the celebrations. We're going to swap seats now. We're going to let Danny jump in as well to join us here. Danny Cahill, who is the chairman of the Letterkenny Gaels Club. Just briefly, we're going to go to Gary and Brendan because we're going to talk the Ulster Championship draw. Thanks, John. See you later. John's way out the door. Listen, Brendan, what about the draw down against Donegal? Whoever this new management team's going to be from a Donegal point of view, I'm sure they'll be quite happy with the draw. We've stayed away out of the other half that involved Tyrone and Derry.
Yeah, and Monaghan are in the other half too, I think. Listen, down on the face of it would seem to be a decent draw. We all know that Newry Park Esler is a tough place to go at the best of times, but Down have been underperforming over the last couple of years. Conor Laverty taking over this year, you would expect to rejuvenate them, and you would be expecting a big challenge. You would be expecting that he'd be getting the Kilcoyne guys on board who haven't subscribed to the county team over the last number of years. So, it could be a big challenge. We'll know more once we see form of teams going through the National League and that. And, Down, as I say, haven't been good up to now. But I think this guy coming in, he's highly rated as a coach, as a manager, and he's done really well. So I think he'll bring a new dimension to this Down team, and it mightn't be just as easy as what people would otherwise think based on form over the last couple of years.
Do Donegal need to be concerned about Down, Gary?
100%, Oisin, and I would have come up against Conor Lafferty and Kilcoyne in 2016 in Ulster Club, and he'll bring that level of organisation. He's won an Ulster under-20 championship with Down as well. He'll bring that level of organisation maybe that they haven't really had. But what I mean, was a real structure to their play. That's the way he had the Down under-20s played. They played with a very much rigid structure. There's very little off the cuff, whereas maybe over the last forever, I'm nearly down, have a lot of off-the-cuff football, so they have a fantastic to watch. But I'm actually, Oisin would be quite concerned. We'll know more after the National League, so we will. But I think, it could be a very difficult tie. So, I would expect him to get a real bounce out of Down. I expect the Down public, Oisin, and those boys, those boys doesn't start popping their heads up again. So they have a decent have a decent league, and it could be a very slippery, tricky tie for Donegal. And there's plenty of speculation too. Never mind the management. You're always wondering who's coming back. Neil McGee has already called it today. When you hear different stories out and about, and this man might be back here, such a man's going travelling. So you're just hoping if Donegal can get all the players back that were there last year, at least we'll be in with a good shout, but we need everyone, Oisin, in Donegal. We can't afford to lose anyone for a year, and your county career, I would nearly appeal to those boys, your county career and your football career, but definitely your county career for the majority of players is over in a whim. So it is. It's a real short existence, and you gotta enjoy it, and you gotta make the most of it, and it's a very privileged position, and I would appeal to everyone, please don't take it for granted that we need everyone.
Yeah. Brendan, we've talked about the hurt that Naomh Conaill experienced last year that drove them on to winning a club success again this year. Would that hurt of losing to Derry in the Ulster final and maybe a freshness of management coming in, that maybe it might drive Donegal on again to get back to the Ulster final? Because is it fair to say they're on the side of the draw that's very much achievable?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, listen, there's nothing going to be easy down. Nothing going to be easy if they get over that. If this Armagh train coming too, so there's nothing going to be and players have to have that pain and be able to drive themselves on. And like, even if you look at our own county this year, you look at Naomh Conaill beating the county final last year, you look at Dunlow beating the county final last year, came back to win the intermediate. You look at Letterkenny Gaels beating the county junior final, came back to win the junior final this year. Satanta beaten in the hurling final, came back to win the hurling final in Termon Lady. So, there obviously is something there, and you can't create that. That's something that comes from the players themselves and comes from the management team. They know what needs to be done. So you're hoping that, as a Donegal person, that the Donegal team and the Donegal people involved with this new setup, that whoever it is, that they can soak that up and really inject themselves with fire, because we were all disappointed leaving Clonus. We were disappointed with the performance. We were disappointed with the result. Derry got everything right on the day, and it's up to, again, no matter what, like I was saying early on, to take learnings from that and be able to drive it on a bit next year.
Yeah, okay, we're going to go back to Gary. And Gary, you watched the junior final yesterday. You were on Kilcoyne with Diarmid. A huge result for the Letterkenny Gaels.
Oisin, it was an absolutely fantastic game of football. Really, really good. First half, it was all Karen Dunne, so it was. Second half, Letterkenny Gaels came out, when they grabbed the game to the scruff of the neck, because at a stage in the first half, it went to a 5-point game, and it looked as if the game was slipping away from them. Karen Dunne totally, I think, did not look like a Division 3 or a bottom basement team, the first half. They were very controlled in everything they did. I thought their ball handling was good. The way they moved the ball was excellent. Next to no unforced turnovers. Throughout the second half, those unforced turnovers started to creep into their game. Probably a lot due to the pressure coming from Letterkenny Gaels. And, I thought they really stepped up. The likes of Conor McBurty, stepped up the second half. Ronan Frayne was mighty over the 60 minutes, and it was thoroughly deserved off the man of the match. And they just had too much at the end and too much hurt. They'd lost. It was their third final in 4 years, having lost the last two and lost to good teams, the likes of Buchanan and Downings, who both had major runs in Ulster. And you just felt yesterday that they weren't going to leave it behind, and you thought at half time, and their management team have to be applauded too. They weren't afraid to make the changes. They made 2 subs in the first half, made another one at half time, so they did. And it was good players that they brought off, the likes of Cormac Cannon, who is a good player and one of their main scoring threats up front. But they made those changes, and I think it was Shea Doherty came on and got actually 2 points. So everything they did was justified.
Okay, and I'm delighted to say, joining us in studio now to talk about the Letterkenny Gaels' success is their chairman, Danny Cahill. Danny, you're welcome to Highland Radio.
Thanks very much, Joshua.
And what's the feeling like today, Danny? Is it relief, is it?
Well, yeah, it's relief. It's also just an incredible elation as well. I mean, I think after the game, the final whistle yesterday, and I think yesterday evening, the celebrations we had, and even today, and all the messages really is about we did it. And I think that's really for us as a club. That's really the most important thing, as has been said so many times. There was a great deal of hurt last year. We lost the final. We lost it quite badly. The players who were there last year, pretty much the players who are there this year, I mean, they stepped up. They made the difference. There's all sorts of, I'm sure we can talk about, and absolutely the management team, the change in management and coaches and everyone. But I mean, it's really when the ball's thrown up, it's up to the players themselves. And at half time, I'm not sure what happened in the change.
Were you worried at half time?
Was I worried? Well, I was concerned because, well, actually, I was quite happy that we got the final score of the first half, because I think
it brought back to 3, didn't it?
It did, because I think at one stage we were down 5, and that's quite a significant lead. And I just thought the way we started the second half, we won the throw in the second half, and we really were on attack, and I think that is actually, as I say, there can be all sorts of tactical talk, there can be all sorts of changes, and those changes, made a difference. But I think really what the most important thing is that I think that maturity and togetherness of the team as well, and I think that's shown through. Because Carndonner didn't give up. They didn't give up the ghost at all. I mean, literally in injury time, they had a chance to.
You have players like Conor O'Donnell.
Absolutely. So it was just an incredible time just for us as a club. I mean, it's been alluded to as well. I mean, we're only 26 years old.
Yeah. And there's been a lot of development in the club since that time, from you started on day one to this point now. There's even though it's this current crop of players and management that have taken them to success, they're at sort of like the end of the chain. There was a lot of other parts of it on the way, so there was, Donna.
There was, and we were actually very fortunate. We had a great celebration in Arena 7, and looked after it as always there in Arena 7. And Paul Malaw, one of our joint managers with Dougie, he really spoke about the development both of the players as individuals and as a team, but also all the managers and coaches who've been part of that. And pretty much everybody was there last night, which is just incredible. You can look around the room and you see all the men who've worked with these as boys, as underage, as minors, and as seniors as well. To come through that together, and to have those people around the club, who started the club. Our 4 founders were there as well, but everybody else who's been involved, and it's just a special time. And to be able to say Letterkenny Gaels are an intermediate club is just really so special for all of us.
Yeah, and I suppose now the next target, I know Ulster's coming up, we'll talk about that in a second, but you now step up to intermediate. The start of the year you were in Division 2, and it was hugely important that the club stayed in Division 2. How important is it now that you don't drop back to junior? Because when you do get a promotion and you do move up a level, clubs can struggle at times and find it difficult. So you're probably going to have to work twice as hard as you did this year just to stay at intermediate, Danny.
Absolutely. I mean, and there's no club out there who's going to sit back and say, well done, Letterkenny Gaels. You're welcome to intermediate football. We're going to have to work for it on the field. We're going to have to plan and work off the field as well. Every player, I mean, I spoke to a lot of players yesterday after the game and yesterday evening as well, and they're all looking forward to it. It's a challenge for each and every individual, but it's a challenge for our club as well, and for the team, and for all those people who are part of it. Some people weren't part of it yesterday, some people didn't play. We made substitutions. There's a lot of opportunity, and I suppose it inspires people as well. It brings out the best. Pressure for a lot of people can sometimes be too much, but I actually think, and the other side of it, I think pressure and experience is really important. And we played a lot of intermediate teams last year in Division 2, and we fared well. But again, we start again, as you say. There's nobody will do us any favours. We have to work, and we're there on merit, but we have to stay there on merit as well.
I'm sure Downings is an example of that. They come up, as you know, you suffered at the hands of them. Look at the year they had. They went into Division 1, so they did on the league. So, but obviously from an overall club point of view, you're hoping this is a springboard to something else. We've seen what Gary and the guys out of Glenswilly, when they won a championship, what it does for Naomh Conaill and for Unions as well. This has to be a springboard to to bigger things. You need to get the numbers growing. People need to get more interested now in the Letterkenny Gaels off the back of winning a championship.
Absolutely, and I think that's really important. You know, as John said earlier, you know, all the success that they've had, that didn't just fall out the sky in the last couple of weeks or even this last season. This has been something we've been building to, you know, clearly since the inception of our club, but particularly over the last number of years. Our underage setup, you know, we have a plan there in place. Everybody's following it. You know, the managers and coaches may change from year to year, but there's a clear plan there in place. And, you know, the vast majority of that team yesterday were people who've come through our underage setup. Yeah. And, you know, there's no doubt about it. Winners attract other people as well, and you know we want to attract. You know, we want to improve our facilities, we want to expand our facilities, our coaching setup as well, and that makes a big difference. And that obviously is what we want as a club as well.
Yeah. You are a busy club.
We are,
and you're a committed club.
Yes.
We better mention the Bees. Then congratulations to Naomh Conaill.
Yes,
they took the one yesterday. The Bees,
they did.
The junior B side coming up short.
Yeah. We were going for. I suppose we'd won it last year as well. They did very well. And I suppose it is a cliche, but it's absolutely sure about, you know, the result yesterday. Goals win games, and you know they got their goals and we didn't. And
it's hard to do back-to-backs.
Well, it seems it's almost impossible in Donegal now at this stage.
It's hard to do. But again, yes, are a busy club. There's a lot else going on. Like you're very much to the fore in hurling.
We are.
Also, we've got Camogie out there as well.
Yeah, for underage. For
and
ladies football. We've
ladies
actually
football,
we've now got senior ladies as well. So you know, it is a club that we're obviously the biggest town in the county. You know, we're neighbours of you know a huge club in St Eunan's, but you know there's space for everybody. I think there's no doubt whatsoever. Yeah. You know, we're not rivals. We're not.
When you and Brendan are proof for the pudding now.
Yeah, I suppose if we get to the senior championship, then who knows?
Yeah. Well, look, down the line, you never know. That's
absolutely,
and it's very much achievable if the club continues to develop.
And that has to be our ambition as a club. You want to be the very best. You want to be playing the very best. That's what we're about.
Letterkenny Gaels against St Eunan's for the Dr. Maguire. Will we give it 15, 20 years? Will it happen sooner? But listen, Danny, as always, thanks for coming in, and many congratulations on winning. And enjoy the rest of the week, and I'm sure the boys will enjoy the rest of the week as well, because it's like what John alluded to. Whenever you have success, you need to enjoy it. And the best of luck with Letterkenny Gaels in the future.
Thanks very much. Great. Thank you.
Danny Conaill, who's joined us in studio. We'll thank our other guests who are here tonight as well. We'll say goodnight to Gary McDaid, who is in Glenswilly. Gary, thanks for joining us, and we'll be speaking to you again, I'm sure, over the next couple of weeks. And thanks for helping us out in bits and bobs in the commentary over the last few weeks too.
All right, Oisin, all the best. Thoroughly enjoyed it. Thank you.
Okay, there you go. That's Gary McDaid and Mr. Brendan Kilcoyne. I'm sure he'll be speaking to us again in the next few weeks. Thanks for coming in as always, Brendan.
Pleasure, Oisin. Thank you.
Okay, so that is it for another edition of the DL debate tonight. We will, of course, be back with another programme for you next Monday night, just after the 7 o'clock news. Thanks for tuning in. If you missed any of the show, you will, of course, be able to go to our website shortly after 8 o'clock. It will be available there to listen back to. So that is it. Enjoy the rest of your Monday evening. Thanks for tuning in.
The DL debate with Sister Sarah's Letterkenny, serving food you'll love till 9 p.m. daily in Sarah's Kitchen. And there's free admission entertainment every weekend.